My name's Jason. I'm 40 years old, and up until 3 days ago, I honestly thought I had life pretty well figured out. I co-own a mid-sized tech company with a couple of buddies I went to college with. I've been married for 6 years to a woman I genuinely believed was my best friend. I really thought we were building something meaningful together, something that mattered, you know? I figured I was with someone who gave a damn that I was part of the picture. We didn't have kids yet, even though her parents kept tossing out not-so-subtle hints. "You're not getting any younger," her mom would say while scooping mashed potatoes onto my plate, wearing that tight-lipped smile that never quite made it to her eyes. I used to laugh it off. I thought they just wanted to feel involved. At the time, I thought a lot of things. The night everything fell apart started with something as basic as dinner. Her family throws these semi-formal get-togethers every couple of months. Her mom always goes overboard, sets the table like it's a damn wedding reception with those gold-rimmed plates and the kind of flower arrangements that make the whole house smell like a department store perfume counter. They'd always rope me into helping set things up, and I always agreed. Didn't bother me much. Truth is, I liked being part of something that felt warm, even if most of the time her cousins were glued to their phones and her uncles treated me like I was some stray mutt her dad accidentally brought home. That night, I was in the kitchen, pouring drinks and chuckling to myself because her dad had just handed me this oversized bottle of liquor and said, "Pour heavy. It's the only way to survive one of these nights." I just stepped outside to grab more ice from the cooler when I caught voices through the screen door. Her Uncle Dean, loudmouth, always talking, was saying something to someone inside. She could have done way better. I mean, Jason's alright, but let's be real, he's just a stepping stone. Then came her voice, cool, calm, and sharp, not for long. "Once the transfer goes through, I'm gone. And I'm taking half his company with me." At first, I thought maybe I'd misheard. I stood there frozen, a bag of half-melted ice in my hands, while all the blood drained out of me like someone yanked the plug. I waited, hoping she'd laugh, say she was kidding, anything to make it not real. But nothing came. Just silence. Then the soft clink of glasses and the sound of someone walking away from the door. I walked back in like nothing had happened. Kept that smile on my face, served up drinks, made small talk about the weather. I handed her cousin a glass of Chardonnay, probably with a grin that looked more like a grimace. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped a soda bottle. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't give a damn. That part hit the hardest. The way she kept acting like everything was normal, like I was too naive or too trusting to catch on. I got through the rest of that night on pure autopilot. Smiled at jokes, laughed a little too hard at a story from her dad I'd heard at least a dozen times. At one point, she brushed my shoulder. I almost jerked away. But I didn't let it show. Just nodded, kissed her temple like I always did, and told her dinner was great. She flashed that polished, empty smile she used when clients were watching. And in that moment, it clicked. Maybe it had always been fake. Once everyone left, I stayed in the kitchen and did the dishes. I needed something to focus on, anything to keep my hands busy. She went upstairs for a quick bath and asked me to bring up her phone charger. I told her I would. About 10 minutes later, I walked into her bedroom and saw her phone lit up, screen facing up on the bed. A new message had popped in from a contact named Jules. But it wasn't a woman. I knew it right away. I didn't even need to scroll. Just a few words from the thread told me everything. "Can't believe he still doesn't suspect. Just 2 more days and we're in the clear." I didn't touch the phone. Didn't say a single word. Just dropped the charger on the nightstand like nothing happened. Then I headed straight for the guest room, closed the door behind me, and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. My heart didn't break. It boiled. Next morning, she kissed me on the cheek like she always did and said she had a meeting in the city, wouldn't be home till late. I just nodded and watched her leave in that blazer she wore when she wanted to impress someone. The second she was out the door, I got to work. Over the past 6 years, I'd quietly built in some protections. Backups. Agreements. Even the way we structured the company gave me the final word on any transfer of shares. She didn't know that. She thought she could sidle up to my partners, play the long con, and walk off with half the company and a smug smile. That morning, I called my lawyer. Then my accountant. Then the guys I built the company with. I laid it all out, piece by piece. I figured they'd be shocked. Maybe even angry. But they weren't. They just looked tired. One of them, Miles, sighed and said, "Honestly, man, we were just waiting for you to catch on. She's been working the angles for a while." That night, she came home humming. I kid you not, humming. Walked in with takeout like she hadn't just stabbed me in the gut the night before. "You're not mad I was out so late, are you?" she asked, peeking into the living room with those big eyes full of fake concern. "Of course not," I said. "I trust you." And the way the lie slid off my tongue so easily? I almost laughed. The next couple of days crawled by like some kind of twisted movie montage. She played her part, called to check in, talked about planning a spring trip, even offered to cook a few nights. I smiled. I nodded. I said yes to everything. I played the part of a man who didn't know. Day 3 rolled around, and that's when the real storm hit. I was in my office, going through emails like any other morning, when my phone lit up. Once. Then again. And then it wouldn't stop. Calls pouring in, her number, her mom's, her uncle's, even random ones I didn't recognize. Text after text. Notifications stacking up like dominoes. Her name showed up 6 times before I finally picked up. She was in full-blown meltdown mode, crying, yelling, barely coherent. How could you? Jason, what did you do? She screamed. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. And that's when I heard it. A knock at the front door. Hard. Fast. Then again, louder this time. Then again. Like they thought if they pounded hard enough, I'd disappear before they got a chance to yell at me in person. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not this time. I let it go on for a while. Let the knocks build into a frantic rhythm. I wanted her to sit in that silence on the other side and wonder. To squirm. Because for once I wasn't the one cleaning up the mess. I wasn't the one holding my breath, hoping things didn't fall apart. This time I was in control. Eventually, I made my way to the door slow and steady like I had all damn day. When I opened it, there she was. Still wearing the same clothes from the day before, mascara smeared under her eyes, hair tangled mess. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Good. Her uncle was right behind her, face red like he'd just come from a shouting match with God himself. She opened her mouth, her voice trembling. Jason, please, can we talk? I leaned against the doorframe, calm as ever, and gave her the same neutral, unreadable expression she'd perfected over the years. Sure, I said. You want to come in? Or are you just here to collect whatever scraps are left? Her uncle puffed up like a balloon, all noise and no sense. You've made a huge mistake, son. You're not thinking clearly. This is an overreaction. I tilted my head slightly like I was genuinely considering it. That's interesting because I was under the impression that trying to rip off your husband and steal his business was the real overreaction. But hey, I'm no lawyer. She stepped between us, trying to play peacemaker. Jason, please. I wasn't going to actually go through with it. It was just talk. That's all it was. I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just looked at her and said, then you won't mind if I forward the audio to my lawyer, right? She went pale. Because here's what she didn't know, after that dinner, the night I overheard her out on the patio, I didn't just pretend nothing happened. The next day, I planted a discreet little recording device in the living room. Just in case. Turns out just in case paid off. Because she talked. A lot. To her uncle. To her friend Jules. Even to herself. I caught her muttering about numbers, timelines, percentages. Reading off account balances like she already had her hands in my wallet. She was laying out the blueprints to rob me blind, right there in my living room. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, tears sliding down her cheeks like that was supposed to erase everything. It just got out of hand. I thought maybe I deserved something too. You did, I said, voice steady cold. You deserved honesty. You deserved respect. But instead, you wanted control. Power. So you faked love. You faked us. Her uncle cut in again, still trying to throw his weight around. If you go public with this, you'll ruin her. Is that what you want on your conscience? I smiled. Not because it was funny. Because I finally understood. To these people, I wasn't a person. I was a stepping stone. Just a bank account with a heartbeat. And now that they realized the gravy train had reached the last stop, they were desperate. I'm not going public, I said. That'd be petty. I'm just protecting what's mine. Then I handed her a folder. Neat, professional, everything in place. Inside? Every little shady move she'd made. Every secret transfer. Every attempt to quietly pull assets into joint accounts, thinking I wouldn't notice. I noticed. And right next to that folder? Another one. This one said, Notice of Separation. She opened it with shaking hands, trying to keep it together. This isn't fair. You're just throwing everything away. I looked her in the eye. Really looked at her. For the first time in years, I saw the truth, not the girl I married, not the woman I built a life with, but the stranger she'd slowly turned into. No, I said. You're the one who threw it away. I'm just taking out the trash. She broke down completely then, crying harder, begging me to reconsider. Said she'd change. Said it was all a mistake. Her uncle stood stiff beside her, arms crossed, eyes calculating, probably worried about how deep he was tied into her mess. Didn't matter to me anymore. I told her I'd be staying at a hotel for a bit. The house was still mine, legally. I'd give her a few days to pack up and leave. But I warned her if she touched a single thing that wasn't hers or so much as looked in the direction of my company again, my lawyer would bury her so deep in legal trouble she'd need a snorkel to breathe. Eventually she left. Still crying. Her uncle tried to slam the door behind him on his way out like that would rattle me. Didn't even blink. The days that followed were quiet. Almost too quiet. The calls stopped. The texts trickled off and finally disappeared. Guess she realized it was over. That there wasn't anything left to claw back. I figured that'd be the end of it. Until her mother called. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't offer an apology. Didn't try to explain or even show a hint of remorse. Instead, she said, "You've made your point, Jason. Now be a man and fix this." I just stared at the phone. Let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Fix what, exactly?" "Our family," she snapped. "You think just because you've got money now you can walk away? That girl gave you 6 years. She made you look good. You owe her." And something inside me? It cracked. Not in a sad, broken-hearted way. In a done-for-good, never-looking-back kind of way. It felt like something inside me had finally cracked open, like a rusted lock that had been stuck for years suddenly gave way. Because, oddly enough, her mother was right about one thing. My wife had made me look good. Not because she loved me, but because she acted like she did. She smiled on cue, said all the right things in public, played the perfect partner while carving knives into my back behind closed doors. And now that the truth was out, her family thought I was the one who owed them something. I didn't say a word. Just ended the call. Because this wasn't finished. Not yet. It was strange how quickly the quiet settled in. Like it had been waiting for me. That first morning waking up alone, actually alone, I thought I'd feel wrecked. Hollowed out. Maybe even furious. But I didn't. I felt clear. It was like I'd been trying to think underwater for years and finally broke the surface. Everything was still. Focused. Simple. I sat out back with a cup of coffee looking out at the yard where I once planned to build a deck for her dream garden. Funny thing? She never planted a single thing. Not even a basil plant. Just talked about it. Said it would be our project. Another promise that ended up on the junk heap with the rest. It wasn't just the betrayal that ate at me, it was how intentional it had all been. The timing. The performance. Every move she made felt like it had been rehearsed. And her family? They fell right into place like they'd been cast for it years ago. And maybe they had. That part lingered in my head longer than I liked. That afternoon I went into the office. I needed something solid. Something that hadn't turned to ash in my hands. Miles and Darren were already there, my business partners and thankfully still my friends. They looked at me like guys who wanted to say something helpful but knew better than to force it. Darren, man of few words, just gave my shoulder a firm pat and said, "Whatever you need, we're here." Miles, on the other hand, pulled me into the conference room. "She called me yesterday," he said, keeping his voice low. I raised an eyebrow. "She did? What for?" "Said she wanted to clear the air. Told me she was worried you might do something extreme." I let out a dry laugh. Extreme would have been draining our accounts and disappearing to Costa Rica. "I'm not out for revenge, Miles. I'm just done." He nodded, but I could see he wasn't finished. "She also asked if we'd consider reversing the share lock you put in last quarter." That stopped me cold. "She what?" "Yeah. Said it was unfair. Said you manipulated her." I chuckled, low and bitter. Not because it was funny, but because it was exactly what I expected. The second her plan fell apart, she didn't reflect. She pivoted. No apology. No ownership. Just a new angle. Another version of the same game. "She forgets," I said, almost to myself, "that she never helped build any of this. She just picked the curtains." Miles didn't reply. He didn't have to. Later that evening, I got a text from her. No hello. No explanation. Just a photo of the guest room, her bags packed, neatly stacked. Followed by a single line. "I'm out. Left your key on the counter. Hope you're happy." No punctuation. No closure. No anything. I stared at the message longer than I should have. Not because it hurt, but because of what it didn't say. No remorse. No, I'm sorry. Not even a fake attempt at reconciliation. Just another lazy swing at guilt. One last half-baked performance. I didn't answer. Instead, I poured myself a drink, something dark, aged, and expensive. I'd been saving it for a win. And freedom? Freedom felt like one. That night, I went through everything. Every account. Every document. Every shared file. I backed it all up. Screenshotted everything. Made copies on copies. Not because I was paranoid, but because I was prepared. People like her don't just walk away. They shift. They rebrand. They come back with lawyers. And sure enough, a week later, a letter showed up in the mail. She was contesting the separation. Claimed I coerced her. Said I emotionally manipulated her. That I kept her away from financial decisions and family matters. I nearly laughed out loud. This woman once refused to let me pick out throw pillows without calling her mother first. But this wasn't about facts. It was about optics. She wanted to be the victim before the full story got out. If she could shape the narrative, she could still claw something back. That's when I made the call. Told my lawyer to send everything. Not to the press. Not yet. Just to her attorney. Let them listen to what I'd heard through that screen door. Let them read the messages. See the attempted transfers. The planning. The intent. Let them decide if they really wanted to take the circus to court. I figured it'd be quiet. But what I got was better. Panic. Next morning I got a call. Not from her. Not even her lawyer. It was her mother. Again. But this time her voice didn't carry that smug edge. It was soft. Nervous. Jason, sweetheart, she said, like she was trying to wrap poison in honey, I think we've all let this get a bit out of hand, don't you? I stayed quiet. She kept going, words tumbling a little faster. Your wife, she's devastated. She regrets everything. And these things, you know, emotions get the best of us. Maybe you could come over. We could talk. As a family. Family. There was that word again. And for half a second, I almost said yes. Almost. But then I remembered her daughter looking me straight in the eye and promising me forever while already plotting how to take it all away. I remembered her uncle laughing behind my back. And I remembered her, this same woman on the phone, sipping wine at our table all those years, pretending not to notice the cracks she helped create. So instead I said, you should tell your daughter to sign the paperwork. There was a pause. That tight, brittle kind of silence that feels like something delicate just snapped. And if she doesn't, she asked, her voice brittle. I smiled. Then I'll show the world who she really is. And that's where things stand. For now. Because what they don't realize, what no one in her circle knows yet, is that the recordings. That wasn't my only ace in the hole. There's more. A lot more. Financial records. Legal documents. Paper trails that lead to places they definitely don't want public eyes on. Stuff that wouldn't just burn bridges, they'd reduce everything they've leaned onto a pile of smoldering ash. But I haven't pulled the trigger. Not yet. Because I want them to squirm first. After that last phone call from her mother, I gave it 3 full days. No texts. No voicemails. Not a single chirp from her, her mom, or the lawyer she used to talk so big through. Silence. Which told me everything I needed to know. They were scrambling. Digging, probably. Trying to spin something. Craft some twisted version of the story that painted me as the bad guy. But the quiet was too sharp, too still. It felt like the moment right before an earthquake hits, when everything freezes and the tension hums in the air. I used those 3 days wisely. I wasn't mad anymore. That fire had burned out. What was left was something cleaner. Sharper. Like steel. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about truth. Dignity. Making damn sure she didn't get to rewrite the story of our marriage like she was some innocent soul who just wanted to be understood. She wanted a clean exit, take half of what I built, vanish, and leave me standing in the wreckage looking like the bitter ex-husband who couldn't move on. And the crazy part? She almost pulled it off. If I hadn't stepped out to grab ice that night. If I'd been just a minute slower pouring drinks. I might have toasted her at dinner, told her how lucky I felt, and handed her the keys to my company with a smile on my face. But life has a funny way of looking out for people who finally start paying attention. And I was finally paying attention. On the 4th morning, I met with my lawyer one last time. We laid everything out. Every piece of evidence, every document, and most importantly, the countermotion that would gut her claims and leave her exposed. And we didn't throw the word fraud around lightly. We had receipts, wire transfer attempts, recorded conversations, messages with Jules, her not-so-cleverly disguised partner in crime, spelling out the whole plan. The dates, the numbers, the timeline. My lawyer gave me a look. You sure about this? He asked. Once it's filed, there's no going back. This'll get messy, public, ugly. I looked him straight in the eye. Good. Let them see it. So we filed. Didn't take long for the news to reach her. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. A text. 2 words. You monster. I didn't reply. An hour passed. Another text came through. You said you wouldn't go public. You promised. Thing is, I never promised. I said I wouldn't, for now. But that was before she tried to burn down my life and hand me the lighter. The next morning, her lawyer called mine. Full-on panic in his voice. They didn't want this in court. Didn't want it in the media. Didn't want it anywhere. Rumors had started. Someone from her mom's precious country club had heard whispers. Phrases like, attempted corporate fraud inside a marriage. Funny thing is, I never said a word to the press. But lawyers talk. Especially when they think it'll spook the other side. Suddenly, they were all about settling. Willing to drop every claim. She'd give up her stake in the company, walk away from the house, sign the NDA, keep it quiet. But that wasn't enough. Too much damage had already been done. So I gave them my own terms. She would publicly retract every lie. She'd write a formal apology. And she'd return every cent she funneled into that little side account she thought I'd never find. Her lawyer balked, said I was being unreasonable. So I sent over the audio clip. Her uncle, in his own words, bragging about pulling a fast one before the fool figures it out. They folded the very next day. We agreed to meet face-to-face one final time. Neutral ground. No attorneys. Just the two of us, a mediator, and a folder thick enough to choke a shredder. She looked different. Not older exactly, but worn. Like someone who'd been lying to herself for so long. Even her reflection didn't trust her anymore. Her voice was quiet when she finally spoke. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I stayed silent. I thought if I had a little more control, I'd feel safer. You always had everything. The respect. The business. The friends. I looked at her, my voice steady. You had me. You just didn't want me. You wanted what I came with. She didn't argue. Just stared down at her hands, picking at a hangnail until it bled. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't think you'd ever leave. I thought I'd be stuck forever. And that was the moment it hit me. Not sadness. Not pity. Clarity. She wasn't stuck with me. She was stuck inside her own bitterness. Her own envy. And when she realized she couldn't build her own thing, she tried to steal mine. We signed everything. No hugs. No drawn-out goodbye. Just ink and silence. She looked at me one last time before she stood to leave. I hope you find someone who sees you for who you really are, she said. I watched her walk out. Then I gathered up the folder, slipped it into my briefcase, and stepped outside into the sunlight. But it wasn't really over. Because even though the papers were signed, the damage was done. Not just to me personally, but to my reputation. Some folks had heard her version first. And, for a while, they bought it. Took her word as gospel without ever asking me what the hell happened. So I made one final move. Not out of spite. Not to get even. Just to set the record straight. I wrote a statement. Not some flashy press release or dramatic tell-all. Just a clear, steady message, simple, honest, necessary. In light of recent events involving my separation, I want to clarify that any claims made against my integrity or business practices are categorically false. Evidence has been reviewed by legal professionals, and formal agreements have been reached. I believe in transparency, respect, and accountability, and I will continue to uphold those values in both my personal and professional life. We sent it out to our investors, to our clients, to our partners. And you know what? The response floored me. Support started pouring in. People I hadn't heard from in months. Some I thought had quietly distanced themselves. Reached out. Told me they'd heard things, but hadn't known what to believe. Some apologized. Some shared their own war stories. But most just said the same thing, we've got your back. It didn't magically fix everything. Reputations aren't light switches. But it started something again. Trust. The real kind, the kind you can build on. The house? It's mine now. And yeah, it's a little too quiet sometimes. Still got that echo of emptiness. But somehow it feels cleaner. Like the walls finally got a chance to exhale. No more tension buried in the floorboards. No more pretending. The company's thriving. Better than ever, actually. Miles and Darren pulled me aside a couple weeks after everything settled and said they wanted me as CEO. Not because of the chaos. Not because I won. But because I'd proven I could take a hit and keep the ship steady. And her? Last I heard, she was living with her mom again. Tried to launch a consulting gig, but couldn't pull in clients. People talk, especially when there are receipts. I didn't ruin her. Didn't have to. I just told the truth. Pulled the curtain back and let the world see what was already there. Then I stepped back and let gravity do the rest. Not to be cruel. Not to feel powerful. But because sometimes the only way people learn is when the floor they thought would always hold them finally drops out from under their feet. So no, I didn't get the love story I thought I was writing. But I got something better. I got free. Free with my name intact. My business stronger than before. My future back in my hands where it belongs. And I'll take that ending quiet, clean, earned over any fairy tale. Any day.